Hello everybody and welcome back to my Discord.py bot tutorial series. Today we're on episode 9. I just want to quickly say thank you guys so much for all the support on the series. You guys seem to be loving it a lot, and the support and feedback is just amazing from you guys. It helps me keep motivated to keep educating you guys on the series, and yeah, I just want to quickly thank you guys. We just reached 70 subs and I think around like 5k views, which is pretty insane for me. But yeah, as long as we keep getting positive feedback on the series, I'm gonna keep posting videos just like these. So, like I said, we're on episode 9 now, and today we're gonna be covering buttons. If you don't know what buttons are, I'm gonna pop up a picture right here on the screen, and really simple. It's kind of like the replacement to reactions, but you can put these little buttons on the bottom of your messages that can do literally whatever you want. But it's also part of the interaction. I guess class that Discord.py has. So it's kind of an extension off of last episode, where we talked about slash commands. And if you didn't watch last episode, I'd recommend watching it first because it completely explains the entire interaction class. And we're gonna kind of extend off that today. So I'd recommend watching that first. But yeah, without further ado, hope you guys are having an amazing day, and let's jump right into the code. All right, so jumping back into Visual Studio Code, let's go ahead and make then this first command that I'm gonna make is literally just gonna be just to show how buttons work. And then in if you just want to know how buttons work, then you can watch just the first half. And then in the second half, I'll actually put it into an actual command where you can see actually in action and the actual functionality of buttons. But yeah, so there's a couple steps to making buttons work. And the first step is so what you have to understand about buttons is there's something called a view. Of every message that's sent in Discord, there's something called a view, and by default the view is either none or just default. But when you declare that view, like when you send a message, so when you call interaction.channel.send, or even when you do ctx.send, there's always a parameter in here. And let's see if I can get the documentation up. Maybe. Okay, well, it's not inside of it. Let me see if I can get the documentation up of this. Give me 1 second. There we go. Okay, so I got to pop up. So you can see in here, if you look past all this, you can see something called view. And this view is what allows us to attach stuff to the message. And in this case, we're trying to attach buttons to the message. So let's go ahead and create that view. And in order to create that view, we need to create a class. If you don't know much about classes, I would watch a video first on what classes are, because they're not that complicated, but it's just something that you need to understand, obviously, in order to create this class. I'll be making a video later on about classes and all the different data types and stuff like that. But for now, if you don't know what classes are, this might be a little difficult for you. But if you know what classes are, then perfect. So let's go ahead and create our class. So this is just going to be whatever our view is going to be called. So I'm just going to do class, and then I'll call it test buttons. And inside of the class, we're going to pass in the view. So we're going to pass in discord.ui.view because we want it to be of that type. And if you know anything about classes in Python, you need to define the init. Again, I'm not really going to explain what the init is, but it's basically, in short, it's what has to be defined for every class, so you know what object is passing through it, if that makes sense. Hopefully that makes sense. Again, not trying to dive into depth, but you need to put your init. So when you go def __ init, sorry, I had to go do something real quick. So we're going to put our init, and then we're going to pass in self, and then in our self, we're going to define the super of this init. And again, I'm not going to dive into depth. I know you probably don't understand what this is, but just understand this is how you create the basics of a class for buttons. Also saying that any object that is passed through this class is going to be automatically given the timeout equals to none, which just means our button's going to be persistent as long as the bot's on. It won't be persistent through if you restart the bot and start it back up again, and I will show you how to do that in the next video, how to create persistent buttons. But for now, go ahead and type this out. So there we go. That is our view class. And then inside of this view class, we need to create buttons. So to make that, we do @discord.ui.button. Is it capital B? I don't remember. Let me check real quick. Okay, so the decorator is lowercase b, but when we pass in button, it's going to be uppercase. Okay, so @discord.ui.button, and then we're going to pass in the label, which is going to be what's actually on the button. So if you want like yes or no, whatever the word is that you want to appear on the button, go ahead and put that there. So I'm just going to put test, and then we want to put the style. By default, the style is just a gray button, I think. But if you want a different style, you can put that here, and I'll go into all the styles in a second. So that's our button actually created, and now we actually have to define what it's going to do. So we go async def, and I would always put it the same name as your label. Let me just make this lowercase so I can put it lowercase. Async def test, and then we're gonna pass in self, because we always need to pass in self into any function that's inside of a class. And then we need to pass in interaction, just like we did for all of our slash commands. Interaction's always first. Obviously we have self now, but we have to pass in interaction as discord.interaction, because it is an interaction. And then we need to pass in the button, which is going to be discord.ui.B button. So now we have our button fully created. Let's put our colon. And now whatever we do under here is going to like run when the button is pressed. And we'll work on that in a second, but for now I just want to get the button up and running. So this should be everything that we need to create one button with the label of test. So how do we actually use this button? So what we're going to do is we're going to create a slash command, just like we did in our last video. We go at client.tree.command, name is equal to test, description, or we don't have to put description. And then we go async def test. Again, if you didn't watch last episode, I would recommend watching it because it is extremely helpful. And I'm not going to re-go over all this stuff that I went in last episode. So if you didn't watch last episode, I'm sure you're falling behind on what I'm writing. But okay, so here's our command created. So now we'll have a slash test, and we want to send a message. Go await interaction dot response dot send underscore message, and then we're going to send. You see, we have to send message. I have a view. Oh yeah, it does. Okay, it does have a view. So we have that view right there. So we're going to send first the content, which is just going to say this message has a button on it, and then we're going to put the view as equal to this view that we created. So it's going to be test buttons. So view is equal to test buttons, and then pass in open parentheses. And I think that's it. That should work, unless I've missed something. I just wrote a lot of code. There's probably gonna be some errors, but we'll go ahead and see if I mess anything up. Let's see. So we should have a new slash command called slash test, which should send a button on it, if I'm not mistaken. And there we go. So now slash test, this message has a button on it, and now we have this button under it, which, like I said, the default style is gray. So we have a gray button that says test on it, and obviously we can press on it. We didn't put any functionalities under it, so it's going to say this interaction failed, because we just put pass under it. But whatever you want your button to do, go ahead and put under this button. So literally anything, and you're passing an interaction. So just like we did last episode, where it would be like interaction.user would be for it to get the user, interaction.channel to get the channel, everything like that. All the documentation is down below if you need to look at that. And so for example, if we want to send a message back, we go interaction dot channel dot send content is equal to hello. So now when we press the button, it'll send hello back. If I go back over to Discord, and just like I said, these won't be persistent buttons across resetting the bot, so this will no longer work, and I'll show you next episode how to fix that. But if I run slash test again, then I press it, and there's an error. Let's see what the issue is. Oh, sorry, we didn't await it. That is my fault. Oh wait, this is an async function, so we do need to await everything that we do. Now it should respond with hello, or send hello in the channel. Slash test, press test, and we get hello from the bot. And it's still going to say the interaction failed because we didn't actually do anything to the interaction. All we did was take the interaction and send a message, but don't worry about that. As you can see, it is responsive to the button because it sends hello. And yeah, that's pretty much the basics of a button. If that's all you really wanted to learn, then you successfully made yourself a button. Obviously, you can apply this to any of the different commands that we've made. I think what I'm going to do in the second half is attach it onto the coin flip command. So we'll run slash coin flip, and then it'll give us two buttons, one that says heads, one says tails. You're going to press one, and it'll tell you if you're correct or wrong. So if you'd like to stick by for that, then you can. If not, then I hope you guys have a good day. But yeah, I'll be working on the rest of that for the rest of the video. And by the way, in case you're wondering, if you want to add more than one button onto it, you literally just come to the next line. You do at discord.ui.button, and you literally just copy it. So like I could literally just take this and then paste it below, and now we'd have 2 buttons, 3 buttons, 4 buttons, and you'd see if I run this and I do /test, we'll get 4 of the exact same buttons. And we did not. Why did we not? I think it's because we didn't give them unique names. They all have the same names. So if you all have the same names on the buttons, it's going to be obviously the same thing. There we go. Okay, so you just have to change the function name to be something different, and it'll show up all separately. But yeah, you can see they'll all do the same thing because I all made them say hello. So they'll all respond with hello. Yeah, that's how you add more than one buttons. And you can look at the button documentation to see what you can pass in to button. You can pass in label. You can pass in the style. So if you want to change the color, I believe it's Discord style.green or something like that, or discord.style.green, I think. Let me see the exact documentation of it. Sorry, discord.buttonstyle.green. Now that should make it a green button. So we have 4 buttons, and the fourth button should be green. If you do /test, and there we go, the 4th button is green. And you can have, let me actually pull up the documentation for the different button styles real quick. So if you go over here to the button, and I'll leave a link to this down below. If you go over to the button documentation, you can see you can pass in a custom ID. And what the custom ID is really used for, it's kind of just to kind of differentiate the buttons and give them their own ID. So if you want to have a callback back to it, you'd have to call it using the custom ID. And I'll actually explain that better in the next episode, because we do have to use custom IDs in the next episode. You can give the buttons an emoji. So if you want it to be like before test, if you want there to be an emoji, if you want it to be like smile test, you can have that on the button. And it takes type of partial emoji, and partial emoji takes like ASCII, different, like there's a couple different ways to send an emoji, or you can just copy the emojis directly into your code, and that's completely possible too. It takes in disabled, if you want the button disabled or not, and that'll kind of just gray it out so where it's not usable. The label, the style, and here's the different styles. It's red. You can have red, green, or gray. URLs, if you want the link URL and it has a little logo, and where you press on it, it takes you to the URL. And these are all just kind of aliases for each other. So danger is a red button, success is a green button, secondary is gray, and then blurple is their Discord's word for their blue color. But if you've ever seen like a blue button, that's what that is. So yeah, that's the documentation. If you want to look through it, like I said, you can, but pretty much you can do anything from buttons. So out of this, call whatever you want. So with that being said, I'm going to quickly create a coin flip command out of this. And yeah, I'll be back when I'm done with that. So before we continue, I just want to quickly explain how we're going to do this. So we have this command CF, and then we're going to send a message that says, please choose heads or tails with the view of CF. So that's going to say, please choose heads or tails, and it's going to have 2 buttons. And those 2 buttons are listed here because it's under the view class of CF. And so the button number 1 is heads, the button number 2 is tails. And then we're going to send it to this function, because I figured it'd be better to create a function for both of them instead of having copied code for both of them. We can just create one function and pass in the choice that we give. So when we call heads or tails under the heads button, we're going to pass in heads, and when we call under the tails, we're going to pass in tails. And then inside of this function, that's going to choose whether you're correct in choosing heads, wrong choosing tails, or whatever, and then send back that response. So I just quickly want to explain what we're doing, and then I'm gonna complete the time lapse real quick. Oh, one thing I actually did forget is that all the functions, so if you do want to pass your the output of your buttons into another function, you always need to pass in the interaction, because otherwise the function has no idea where you're taking this from. So go ahead and just include interaction too, if you want to do that. If you don't want to do this and you just want to copy code what's into, then go ahead. But just saying, if you want to, then you need to do that. But yeah, now I'm going to continue with the time lapse. Okay, I've just finished the command and it seems pretty easy enough. I thought it would honestly be longer like when I thought in my head, but I mean, I've just written everything out and I think that's all we really need. Um, so I'm gonna go ahead and try it out, and this could have a lot of errors, so we will see. Let me see. If I do search CF, we get please choose heads or tails, and I'm gonna add colors to these and make sure they're capitalized and all that. But if I choose heads, okay, it hasn't worked. Let's see what the issue is. Oh, sorry, this needs to be inside of a list. Sorry, that is completely my fault. Normally I just make a list separately and pass it in, but slash CF, heads, you chose incorrectly, it was tails. If I press tails, you chose incorrectly, it was heads. You chose correctly, it was tails. So as you can see, our command is working. I mean, yeah, that's pretty much, I mean, you can use buttons for whatever you want. This is an extremely simple command. Literally very, very easy and a very interactive way to actually use buttons within your server and allow that like interaction between you and your users. So and again, if you want to change these colors, let's go ahead and just make them both green. So sorry, here, label, we're gonna go style is equal to discord.button style.green, and then copy that to the other one, comma, and let's see what else we can put the emoji. If you want to put emoji, you can. Yeah, let's go ahead and see how this looks. Let's make them capital because I don't want them to be lowercase. T and H. And there we go. And this should be our final. There we go. Please choose heads or tails. Heads. You chose correctly. It was heads. So there we go. That's how you can use buttons in your Discord server. If you have any questions, let me know. Like I said, the next video will be persistent buttons, and pretty much what that means. And actually, I didn't really show that off, but if I actually stop the bot and I run it again, some of you guys might think, okay, well, our button's still going to work. And if I come back over here, you will see this button from the last iteration of the bot does not work anymore because it doesn't know what that interaction is anymore because it doesn't have it like stored, if that makes sense. So next video, I'm going to show how to create persistent buttons that will always be available to use, and they'll never like run out, I guess, and will have an infinite timeout. But yeah, with that being said, that was buttons. Pretty self-explanatory. It's pretty easy. If you have any questions, leave them down below in the comments or join my Discord server for support. I should be able to help you guys there. I'm pretty active in there, so if you enjoyed the video, go ahead and subscribe and leave a like. Comment down below any suggestions that you have for next episodes. I'm gonna kind of be sticking to interactions for the next couple of episodes, and then I'm gonna dive into kind of like, you know, moderation, server logs, maybe welcome images, stuff like that. But for the next couple of episodes, it's gonna be kind of interaction stuff. So yeah, hope you guys enjoyed, and I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your day. Peace out.